It's now 6 o'clock right here on Big Breakfast. Today FM, today's hit music.
Hey, I'm Pauline.
And I'm Alan. Tune in to The Breakfast Show on Today FM with Pauline and I every weekday morning.
From 6 a.m. to 9 a.m.
Right here on Today FM, today's hit music.
Today FM, today's hit music.
Good evening, this is FBC News. I'm Jackie Spate. In this bulletin, economy expected to reach greater heights in 2015. Opposition MP wants military powers restrained. And Fiji and British Prime Ministers discuss climate change concerns. Fiji's economy is expected to reach greater heights this year compared to the previous years. This was stated today by the acting Prime Minister Aya Said Kayum while responding to the President's address to the new session of Parliament. Ali Kimbia has more.
New government reforms implemented in trade and investment have immensely contributed to our economic growth, and the government has announced there are many more to come.
Fiji's foreign reserves are at an all-time high. We broke the $2 billion barrier a few weeks ago, and we currently hold around $2.04 billion, sufficient to cover more than 5 months of imports. This is an increase of more than $200 million from the end of 2014.
Said Kayum also highlighted the rapid rise of the tourism sector, with a new record number of tourist arrivals expected this year.
Visitor arrivals are up by 8.4% from January to August of this year, and we will definitely set a new record in tourist numbers in 2015. Earning from tourism will surpass $1.5 billion this year.
Said Kayum says one of the major contributions to the tourism sector is remittances, with an expected 450 million earnings for this year. Remittances
reached a record Fijian $383 million in 2014 and stand at $284 million so far this year, 35% higher than for the same period in 2014. At this rate, Madam Speaker, we expect to set a new record in 2015 of around $450 million.
In his reply to the President's address to the opening of Parliament, Said Kayum urged members of the opposition to work together with government to share ideas that pave the way forward for our economy. Ali Kimbia, FBC News.
Opposition MP Tupon Raunidalo also spoke today, bringing attention to the powers of the Fiji military forces. In a lengthy address, the National Federation Party president called on the RFMF to exercise restraint in the use of its powers.
Attention was drawn to the military's powers in the 2013 Constitution and the need for a measure of control.
The military must understand that the wide powers given to them means that they are no longer the political football of the elected government to be used in political fights between political parties, this elected government or any other in the future. You wish to substitute.
Tupon Raunidalo's response to the President's speech focused mainly on the military and its involvement in Fiji's history of coups. She says the RFMF has the discretion not to act on politically motivated directives and refuse orders which are not consistent with good governance. Raunidalo also hit out at the government for President Ratupeli Nailatikau's speech, which she described as politically partisan and, quote, embroiled his office in muckraking, unquote.
Also taking the floor today, Sodelpa MP Joseph Andulaki Virata, who spoke on the need to have proper debate on new bills expected in the House.
The bill should be thoroughly researched and deliberated by the House for the benefit of all the people. All bills that go through Parliament should follow the parliamentary process. It is unfortunate, Madam Speaker, to state that most of the bills that have been passed through the last session of Parliament have been conveniently rushed through under Standing Order 51.
Dulaki Virata also called for a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to address what he calls ills of the past 8 years. However, he didn't explain what these ills were. Edwin Nand, FBC News.
Climate change was high on the agenda during a meeting between Prime Minister Voreqe Bainimarama and his British counterpart David Cameron in London. Bainimarama informed Cameron of the threats faced by Pacific Island countries due to sea level rise and severe weather conditions. Cameron agrees that more needs to be done to bring about a legally binding convention restricting carbon emissions. He says the UK will work with the EU to encourage other emitters to agree to a progressive deal at the upcoming UN Climate Change Conference in Paris. Visa issues were also discussed, particularly the restrictions and associated costs preventing spouses and children of Fiji-born British Army soldiers from settling in the UK. He also acknowledged Fiji's contributions in the British Army. People in the rural areas will not be neglected as far as development is concerned. Assistant Minister for Rural Development, Joeli Thawaki, said in Parliament today the government will ensure all Fijians benefit. Savara Tamboa has more.
Thawaki says that the Ministry for Agriculture, Rural and Maritime Development has worked very hard to bring equal access to basic services to every Fijian, regardless of where they live. He repeated the need for all Fijians to work together for the benefit of our nation, and any action taken to set up an alternative state is against the national interest.
Two essential things flow from this. Firstly, the state cannot tolerate and will not tolerate any attempt internationally, internally and externally to interfere with sovereignty. And secondly, to the extent of our natural resources, any interference with our sovereignty will be resisted and destroyed.
Thawaki says continuing development will depend on the upholding of our national sovereignty.
They threaten the well-being of all Fijians, most especially our people in the rural and maritime areas. Improving the lives of Fijians in rural areas, in rural and maritime areas is only possible if our national integrity is preserved and we can ensure economic and social stability.
Members of Parliament were advised to look at developments around them to see that roads, bridges, jetties, ports and free education are in place for the betterment of all Fijians. Sabaira Tambua, FBC News.
Police are investigating a report that a pastor from Vanua Levu impregnated several women members of his congregation. Police Chief of Intelligence and Investigations ACP Henry Brown confirms receiving a report saying they will investigate whether there are any underage girls involved. The complaint states the wife of the 54-year-old pastor has been aware of the matter. In the news ahead, farmers urged to protect crops and livestock as dry spell expected to continue for months.
Ya vino pale pronto kwa chuma ni moshi kwa kwenda bula FM namba ndiwe na siri na ngona ni ndende manda ke central rental support ke ndero shuma kwa minichi me bana koloko ni sabula
oya wa wati soni dalai
gonga ya moshi don
nama kikirau mena tolu kene bitu ena via kabi moliti kene porombuka
goria na lali ne kabi bula FM namba ndiwe na siri
Farmers affected by the prolonged dry spell in the west have been advised to take action to protect their crops and livestock. The Fiji Meteorology Office confirms a strong El Nino phenomenon in the coming months. Akosita Tale has more.
Crop farmers living in drought-affected areas need to set up emergency measures, including essential supplies.
If there is a need for irrigation, water pumps should be in place. If there are crops beside the rivers that you need to draw water out from, then laterals should be in place, boreholes should be checked.
Fixing leaks and collecting rainwater are both critical for farmers to have supply to feed livestock and water their crops. Farmers are being urged to not ignore this warning or they'll suffer huge losses when the El Nino effect hits its peak around November.
So we have some of those basic equipments with us where we try and facilitate, but we are trying to encourage farmers to have it with them so that it won't stop them from preparing themselves for the worst scenario.
Even now, a number of farms are feeling the effects of the dry spell.
Many cane farmers had no harvest. The Agriculture Ministry says there has been little national impact as yet.
Some of the streams, especially from Tabua, Corvo, around those areas have dried up, and that has affected some of the livestock in those areas. But fortunately, cane cutting is on, so that's an alternative source of feed to some of the livestock in feeding on the cane stocks.
Farmers have also been encouraged to plant drought-resistant crops which can adapt to survive long periods without water. Akosita Talei, FBC News.
Fiji wants to host the first summit on oceans and seas in 2017. Foreign Minister Ratuinoke Kumbombola said in Parliament this morning, Fiji is the founding member of the ambassadorial group of Friends of Oceans and Seas. Ratuinoke, meanwhile, is heading to New York today for the UN General Assembly.
There I will highlight the leadership role that Fiji has enjoyed under the Fiji First government to ensure that the Sustainable Development Goal 14 to conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas and marine resources is being implemented properly, especially given the importance of the ocean and its resources for future generations of Fijians.
Ratuinoke says the Fijian mission in Geneva is taking the lead in negotiating new disciplines to regulate fisheries subsidies at the World Trade Organization. The Assistant Minister for Youth and Sports, Elias Ndalana, says young people need to know that the government values them and is working hard to provide them with a great future. Ndalana told Parliament today that if the young people are secure, Fiji will be secure in the years to come. Shireen Lata reports.
The Assistant Minister for Youth and Sports, Eliasa Delana, has visited 500 youth clubs and met thousands of young people since taking up his office 1 year ago. Delana says his meetings have helped him better understand the difficulties young people face.
We will continue to reach out to many more in the future. This visit has helped us to re-evaluate our programs. The Ministry of Youth and Sports has taken on a very challenging role to empower and steer Fiji's young people towards a future of sustainable development. This task is a mammoth one.
Delana says young people make up 38% of the total population and they have contributed significantly towards the development of the nation.
Our commitment to democracy, fairness and equality drives us to make sure our limited resources and assistance are evenly distributed to all youth clubs across Fiji.
2,500 youth clubs are registered with the ministry, and that number is expected to grow as more young people become aware of the resources that are available for them to develop and contribute to nation building. Shireen Lata, FBC News.
The Ministry of Women, Children and Poverty Alleviation believes that women's economic empowerment is a key factor in addressing household poverty. Minister Rosie Akbar says the current economic growth and investment infrastructure has created new opportunities for women. Delivering her response to the President's address in Parliament this morning, Minister for Women Rosie Akbar reiterated the importance and economic sense to invest in women.
Madam Speaker, as a poverty alleviation strategy, it makes good economic sense to invest in women progressing to formal employment. We can see benefits. We are seeing benefits. Money from these ventures means more money for families. This leads to a higher standard of living and helps many escape the grips of poverty.
Akbar says lifting the status of women gives them confidence to take up leadership roles and make informed decisions for their well-being. She says there has been excellent collaboration of stakeholders to move it forward.
Madam Speaker, the second National Women's Expo on 14 to 16 October will champion connecting women to markets, making it happen. It's a breaking platform for women entrepreneurs to connect to markets and start their own businesses.
Akbar says the ministry's Women's Plan of Action has key pillars for economic empowerment, independence, improved access to services, and the commitment to eliminate violence against women. She adds her ministry will continue to push for gender equality at all levels in both rural and urban areas. A Fijian who battled depression and attempted self-harm says suicide is never the answer to any problem. Andy Blake, who is a producer and presenter at Fiji Broadcasting Corporation, last night appeared on FBC TV's For the Record, sharing his life story. Blake suffered severe depression and tried to take his own life, but having overcome a dark time, he says self-harm doesn't solve anything.
My signs was I withdrew from wanting to communicate and socialize with people. My diet got affected. I started eating less and less. I lost interest in a lot of activities and my concentration to a lot of things. I just withdrew from everything and always used to spend time. Yes, I didn't want to talk.
Blake says people must find strength within themselves to reach out and ask for help. Sports is up next. Here's Jamie with the latest from the Rugby World Cup.
And good evening. Coming up tonight, the latest from the Flying Fijians as they prepare to take on the Wallabies. Also up ahead, Dominico Wanganimburotu to face World Rugby Sighting Commission later this evening. Details after the break.
जहां हम आपको और भी सुंदर बनाते हैं और जहां स्वाद की सौगात भी है। नमस्कार, मैं हूं पल्लवी। सोमवार से शुक्रवार 9 से 12 तक रेडियो फिजी 2 देश की धड़कन पर घर संसार में शामिल रहिए मेरे साथ। ऐसा सुंदर सपना अपना।
The Vodafone Flying Fijians have settled in Wales in preparation for its second match of the Rugby World Cup against Australia. Indra Singh was at their first training run in Swansea and filed this report.
The reports and updates of the Rugby World Cup is proudly presented by Vodafone, Power to You, and Airports Fiji Limited, creating new experiences, Fiji's gateway to the world. In association with FMF, the right choice. Total Exilium New Generation, the fuel that cleans your engine kilometer after kilometer. Sun Insurance, for Fijians by Fijians. Supported by Fiji Airways, Deluxe, Island Chill, Comfort Home Furnishing, Rooster Chicken, Legal Aid, Land Transport Authority, and Central Rentals.
The dull weather of Swansea welcomed the Flying Fijians as the team prepares for the second match against the Wallabies on Thursday.
We have to go back to the team camp, work on our mistakes, and try to improve from where we left today, and then look forward for a good game again on Wednesday next week.
While there was no media activity today, one player who is eagerly awaiting the match is wing Nemani Nandolo, who could be up against his cousin Tevita Kurandrani.
We'll catch up in Wales either before or after the game, so I look forward to some family time with him. And but I think we'll get take over of business now, and that's the Wallabies.
The Fijians know that any slip-ups against the Aussies will put them under tremendous pressure.
The program's been set. All we need to do is to move on fast, forget about this game and move on to the next one really close.
The Fijians looked good when they ran the ball against England, but will need a concerted 80-minute effort to bring down the two-time former world champions.
We're just now looking forward to getting to that Australia game and hopefully making amends of.
So the Flying Fijians have settled in Swansea in Wales as they prepare for that next game. A 5-day turnaround period before they take on the Wallabies. It's going to be a massive task, but as the other minnows have shown, the big guns can be taken down, and based on what we've seen the Flying Fijians do against England, it sure can happen. So this is their first training session in Swansea as they build up for Wednesday here and Thursday morning, Fiji time. Indra Singh, FBC Sports.
Meanwhile, Flying Fijian flanker Dominico Wanganimburotu will find out tonight if he's eligible for selection for the match against Australia on Thursday. He will appear before the Rugby World Cup Disciplinary Committee this evening after being cited for foul play during the 35-11 loss to England. Citing Commissioner Douglas Hunter from Scotland cited Wanganimburotu for an alleged act of foul play contrary to Law 10.4. Wanganimburotu is alleged to have lifted a player from the ground and dropped him while the player's feet was still off the ground. At the 2011 World Cup in New Zealand, Wanganimburotu was suspended for 3 weeks after being found guilty of a tip tackle on a South African player. The case will be heard at 10 p.m. by Independent Judicial Officer Professor Lorne Crera. The performance of Tier 2 nations is taking precedence for World Rugby as the World Cup continues in the United Kingdom. And with Japan's shocking win over South Africa, World Rugby remains hopeful more Tier 2 nations show that the gap between teams is closing. Indra Singh has more from Wales.
Here we go! History!
The showing by the likes of Japan and to some extent Fiji and Georgia has got the world rugby licking its lips that its plans are bearing fruits.
James Watson, Nandella's going to win! Determined to close that performance gap between Tier 1s and Tier 2s, and we've put in place the best possible platform for our Tier 2 unions.
Spain with his wife Carla Hohipa.
It's performances such as this that is giving the game's controlling body more reason to ensure its 2015 Rugby World Cup goal is achieved.
Of course, beyond all the record breaking, we hope that England 2015 will be a game changer for the sport. It really has to be a tournament that inspires and converts. That's the goal of Rugby World Cup. A tournament where rugby welcomes the world to try, to play and to stay in rugby.
On the other hand, GOSPA adds they need to ensure that each time a World Cup is held, it is a commercial success so they can continue helping teams and in particular Tier 2 nations.
We do want to make money because that does get channeled back in the game, whether it be in the United Kingdom or England in this case, or ourselves putting money back into the development of the game throughout the world.
The organising committee has also clarified why ticket prices have been priced high, which despite being pricey, has been selling like hotcakes.
So I think we've done our best to balance it off, but it's not just about the guarantee as well, it's also about the costs of putting on 48 matches in 13 venues across the country and making it as big as it is. So there's a high cost to doing that. All of the, you see around you today is all part of that. So it's as much about the overall cost of the delivery as well as the obvious demand for the tickets and the natural pricing that comes from that.
So with all the attention of the rugby world on United Kingdom, it's time for Tier 2 nations to get more of their voices heard. And this can only be done if these nations continue to perform above their weight at this tournament. Indra Singh, FBC Sports.
Minister for Youth and Sports, Laisine Tuitumbo, has hailed the Flying Fijians for its performance against England. Tuitumbo says the team is a step up from the last World Cup in 2011 and wishes the players all the best ahead of the clash against Australia on Thursday.
We still have hope for them to have a good game in this second match against the Wallabies. And I think judging from what the public, what I've seen from the public is that they are all behind the team.
Fiji's fellow pool opponents, Wales and Uruguay, met early this morning at Millennium Stadium in Cardiff. The hosts put on a scintillating performance to run in 8 tries. Centre Corey Allen stole the show with a hat-trick of tries to the delight of the home fans. Wales will, however, be sweating on the recovery of fullback Liam Williams and props Paul James and Samson Lee, among other injury worries. World champions New Zealand got their title defense off to a scrappy start with a 26-16 win over Argentina in a match which saw 3 yellow cards flashed, 2 of those to the All Blacks.
So Carter, line here, the Pumas, taken on by Senatore, almost to the line. Referee has the arm out. It's a try. Has it.
Black broke away.
Aaron Smith, brilliant. Retallick, Savia quickly through the hands. Sunnyville Williams sets it up, and Sankane this time makes no mistake.
Meanwhile, Samoa began its World Cup campaign with a bruising 25-16 win over the United States of America in its Pool B encounter last night.
Tusi was coached by Eddie Jones at Suntory Sungalath, looking for first points. He's caressed that. It's looking ominous now. They attack on the left. Tuilagi there, and Nana Williams. He set a travel forward. Or did he? It's a try. He was playing advantage.
The World Cup has taken a break for 3 days and will resume on Thursday. And remember, you can catch all games at the Rugby World Cup live on FBC TV. That's it from Sports Tonight. It's back to Jackie now with business.
BSP has confirmed there was an attempt to compromise one of its ATMs and steal card information. The bank says it was an isolated incident, adding the matter will be reported to police when evidence has been established. An alert from BSP said a skimming device was attached to an ATM at Wailolo in Nandi last weekend. The device fell off and hotel staff alerted the bank's support staff. The skimming device has a pinhole camera which focuses on the pin pad to capture customers' PIN numbers. BSP says all banks regularly inspect their ATMs for such devices, and there was no intention for the alert to be circulated outside bank technical teams. Cloud conditions and showers were experienced over most parts of the group. A trough of low pressure lies slow-moving just east of Solomon Islands and extends southeastwards over Fiji and Tonga. Meanwhile, another trough lies slow-moving over Kiribati. Suva recorded the lowest temperature at 26 degrees, followed by Nadi at 28. All other centres were in their 30s. Lautoka and Savo at 30 degrees. Pa was the highest at 32 and Lambasa at 31 degrees. Tomorrow's forecast cloudy with some showers over most places. Isolated heavy falls likely. Moderate northerly winds gradually turning and becoming predominantly southerly from later today. An outlook for Wednesday, some showers over most places. The main points again, the acting Prime Minister Ayaz Said Qayyum says the economy is expected to reach greater heights this year compared to the previous years. Opposition MP Thapon Ranindala also spoke today, bringing attention to the powers of the Fiji military forces, and climate change was high on the agenda during a meeting between Prime Minister Voreqe Bainimarama and his British counterpart David Cameron in London. Results from last week's poll question, can we beat England in the Rugby World Cup opener? 69% said yes. This week we're asking, is the level of police visibility on the road satisfactory? Visit IFBC website to take part. Remember, you can send us newsworthy pictures and videos on email citizenseyes@fbc.com.fj or share it with us via Facebook page FBC News. And if you're on Twitter, follow and tweet us your news tips at FBC_news or simply #FBC News. You've been watching FBC News. I'm Jackie Spate. Good night.